Vladimir Putin's official salary is $140,000 a year. His declared assets: one apartment, an old Russian car, and a trailer. His actual net worth, according to financial investigators who have tracked him for 20 years, is approximately $200 billion. That makes him richer than Elon Musk, richer than Bezos, richer than any single human being who has ever lived. And the craziest part, he built it starting from nothing, a failed KGB officer in a collapsing empire. No money, no family wealth, no education that mattered. This is the story of how he did it and why nobody has been able to touch a single dollar. 1989, East Germany. A 36-year-old KGB officer named Vladimir Putin watches the Berlin Wall fall from his apartment in Dresden. He's been stationed there for 5 years doing nothing interesting, recruiting low-level informants, shuffling paperwork, getting fat on German beer. When the Soviet Union collapses, Putin is nobody. He returns to Leningrad with his wife and 2 daughters to a country that no longer exists. His pension is worthless. His employer, the KGB, is being dismantled. But here's what the history books don't tell you. Before Putin left Dresden, he supposedly burned all KGB files in his office. The furnace cracked from the heat. Official story: he was destroying compromising documents to protect his fellow agents. Former intelligence analysts who investigated this period suggest something different. They believe Putin didn't just burn those files. He copied them first. Names of Western assets, Western businessmen with KGB ties, European politicians with Soviet debts, banking connections hidden across Switzerland, Austria, and Cyprus. When Putin walked out of Dresden, he was broke, but he had a list. And in post-Soviet Russia, a list was the most valuable asset you could own. In 1991, Putin lands a job with Anatoly Sobchak, the new mayor of Saint Petersburg. Boring title: head of foreign economic relations. In 1991, Russia, it was a gold mine. The Soviet economy had just collapsed. Russians were starving. The West offered humanitarian aid in exchange for Russian raw materials: oil, metals, timber. Putin's signature was required on every export license. Within 12 months, over $100 million worth of Russian raw materials had been exported under his signature. The food that was supposed to come in exchange never arrived. A parliamentary commission recommended his prosecution. Nothing happened. Sobchak protected him because Sobchak was in on it. The mayor's office was a laundering hub for the Tambov crime family, and Putin was the interface between the politicians and the mafia. The money flowed into a small, unknown bank in St. Petersburg, Bank Rossiya. That bank still exists. The U.S. Treasury calls it the personal bank of Putin and Russian senior officials. That bank is where the $200 billion story actually begins. December 31st, 1999. Boris Yeltsin, drunk, ill, surrounded by enemies, resigns on live TV and hands power to Vladimir Putin. Why Putin? Yeltsin was terrified of prison, and Putin had guaranteed him immunity. Putin's first official act as president was Presidential Decree No. 1, full legal immunity for Yeltsin. His very first move was protecting the previous guy from prosecution. Then the real game began. Putin systematically took over every significant company in Russia. The method: identify a billionaire who got rich in the 1990s chaos. Offer them a choice: give up 30 to 50% of their wealth to Putin's network or face prosecution. If they refused, destroy them. Boris Berezovsky, once Russia's most powerful oligarch, refused, found hanged in a London bathroom in 2013. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, Russia's richest man in 2003, refused publicly, sentenced to 10 years in a Siberian prison 2 months later. Alexander Litvinenko, former FSB officer who accused Putin of ordering assassinations, poisoned with radioactive polonium in London in 2006. The message was received. By 2007, every oligarch in Russia was paying. An estimated 30 to 50% of all profits from every major Russian company flowed into offshore networks that led back to one man, Vladimir Putin. Here's the genius of Putin's system. Nothing is in his name, ever. His $1.4 billion palace on the Black Sea, officially owned by Putin's childhood judo partner. His $700 million super yacht, owned by a Cyprus shell company with no employees. real estate in Monaco, London, Miami, Dubai, all traced back to Putin's ex-wife's boyfriend, his judo coach, his daughter's ex-husband, and his personal cellist, Sergei Roldugin, a professional musician who somehow controls over $2 billion offshore. This isn't money laundering, this is ownership laundering. Putin doesn't own things. He owns the people who own things. When Western governments tried to sanction his wealth after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, they hit a wall. How do you freeze assets owned by a cellist? Treasury analysts estimate they froze approximately 2% of Putin's actual wealth. The other 98% is too hidden, too layered, too protected. 25 years of building the most sophisticated hidden fortune in human history, protected by proxies who know that if they ever talk, they end up dead. Putin walked out of Dresden in 1989 with nothing, a failed spy in a dying empire. 35 years later, he controls more wealth than any human being in recorded history. Not through business, not through innovation. He built it by turning an entire country into his personal bank account. And the scary part? Every dictator watching, from Beijing to Tehran, learned from his playbook. Putin didn't just build a fortune. He built a template, subscribed to political stories, because the official version is never the full story.